Welcome everybody, I am Jacob the Wrestle Dude, and 𝗘𝗏𝗪𝗛 is an adult cartoon created by Chris Bruno and David Lee in a collaborating effort with popular YouTube gaming celebrities, Vanoss Gaming, The Gaming Terrorizer, Basically I Do Work, and I Am Wildcat. And the pilot for the series actually premiered on Vanoss Gaming's YouTube channel back on March 13th. And since then, I have gone back and watched this pilot episode tons of times just because I'm a sucker for YouTube creator extra work and projects that they've been in on, especially stuff like this, which is very interesting. If you guys don't know, the same studio that did this are the same studio that did Rick and Morty, and actually you may notice one of the actors or the voice actors in the show is actually the voice of Jerry in Rick and Morty. And while watching this series and watching this pilot episode over and over again, I noticed a lot of very interesting details and Easter eggs and references and stuff like that that I decided to do something a little bit different that I've never done on the channel, and it's a big old breakdown, so that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the pilot episode, we're going to take a closer, in-depth look, and I'm going to point out all the Easter eggs, all the references, and all the visual details that make this episode even better, and which is why I really hope that it gets picked up by any kind of big networks. So if you're watching this and you enjoyed 𝗘𝗏𝗪𝗛, make sure to spread the word, spread this video, spread the pilot episode all over social media so that the studios at Netflix, Hulu, all that jazz have no choice but to pick it up and make it the big icon that it should be, because it's a very well done show. Very awesome, very great voice acting, very cool premise, very awesome characters, and a lot of really cool details. What details? Well, let's take a look right now. So the Easter eggs and references actually start even before you click on the video to play it. You can see them in the thumbnail. Mason is in a Call of Duty style game in his army outfit. Buck is driving a car with some money in it, obviously a reference to probably Grand Theft Auto 5. Eddie is wearing a Master Chief outfit from the Halo game, and Tommy's reference in his thumbnail image is actually a reference to his arc throughout the episode as he attempts to drive and ride a horse backwards. This is his arc throughout the entire pilot episode, where he finally admits that he can't ride a horse. Now the episode starts in Omaha Beach, storming the beach at Normandy. This is also probably a setting for some sort of Call of Duty style video game. And it's very funny because the first words that are spoken in the series are by Vanoss Gaming's character Eddie, who says the word alright. This is probably a reference to the many times that people have pointed out that pretty much all of Vanoss Gaming's YouTube videos start with him saying any kind of version of alright, and all of them at varying lengths, whether it be alright or alright or alright. And it's a very cool thing that is the actual first word that's ever spoken in this series. There's actually some design details in the characters in this scene that I really like. So you'll notice on Eddie's side patch on his arm, there's actually a logo that's the same logo on his t-shirt that we see later on in the episode, as is Buck's helmet has the diamond that we see on his beanie. Tommy has an army rank badge that says that it's for a sergeant, but it could also act as the 3 slashes that we see later on his jacket. And then Mason has his collar flipped up rather than the other guys who have the collars flipped down. This is probably trying to make it look like how his jacket does later on in the episode, his collar flipped up. And I think it's a really cool design detail that even in the games that they go into, there's some aspect of their characters that stays with them in their costumes. So they defeat the Nazi evil man and they complete the mission, and we go to the title screen and we see the logo for 𝗘𝗏𝗪𝗛. And 𝗘𝗏𝗪𝗛 has an accompanied music which is written by Rinks/Evan/Vanoss himself, and the logo actually has controller buttons for the PlayStation controller, which probably means that 𝗘𝗏𝗪𝗛 is Team PlayStation, even though I'm pretty sure they're probably just Team PC in real life. And 𝗘𝗏𝗪𝗛 is a team of gamers that is created by a division called the Energy Division, and their logo is a bald eagle with a VR headset on, and it also has the Konami code underneath, along with another logo with directional pads and buttons underneath. A lot of really cool references there. If you're a big gamer, you know what the Konami code is. It's a very cool thing to be included even in the logo for the Energy Division. And then we're introduced to Daryl, who is played by Chris Parnell, who does the voice of Jerry on Rick and Morty. He's there to audit the Energy Division, and if he likes what he sees, then they continue on, and if he doesn't like what they see, then he will shut down the program. So, during the introduction on how video games now power the world, we get references to Pong, and we also get a reference to Donkey Kong with altered versions of Kong, Mario, and the Princess. And they reference a few different blackouts throughout history, like the New York blackout in 1977, which, when I looked it up, the cause was actually by stress on the system after a series of lightning storms in the Westchester County, but human and mechanical error, per the New York Times, exacerbated the issue. They also referenced the India 2012 blackout, which was caused by a fairly large breakdown that exposed major technical faults in the India's grid system, and they said they caused Chernobyl, which, when I looked it up, was actually caused by a result of a flawed reactor design that was operated with inadequate trained personnel. So obviously somebody wasn't good at their job and they caused Chernobyl, but in the aspect of the show, it was caused by people not playing enough video games or bugs in video games causing it. So to all lead designers on video games who are all in charge of making sure there are no bugs, make sure there are no bugs, otherwise you may cause another explosion around the world. Now we cut back to Alpha Team's house, which is complete with a pool table and an obstacle course in the background. This is probably what the team uses to train for when they go into video games. And off to the side is a bar. A few moments earlier, we heard Daryl mention that the Alpha Team is some group of 20-something-year-old gamers, and at least this confirms that they're at least over 21, meaning they are legally allowed to drink alcohol. So that's good to know. Now, throughout this entire scene, the gang is trying to play a game of Don't Touch the Floor, where they're trying to answer the front door. Tommy tries to do this by opening up his phone, which shows off a website called Cornhub, and there's an image depicted down below that shows an ear of corn between two women's breasts. This is obviously a reference to the website Pornhub, which is funny because 1 year for April Fool's Day, Pornhub actually did change their website to Cornhub, so that's a very fun meta reference for you. Later on, Buck tries to use hover shoes, but accidentally sneezes and hits the ceiling and knocks himself out, but if you'll notice, the hover shoes do keep his feet off the ground even though he's knocked out, so he's still in the game. Now, Mason then swats their own house, and many people, including well-known potato lover, nut and scrotum expert, and YouTube content creator 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 says that the main officer kind of looks like his GTA 5 character. However, when bragging on Twitter about it, this rumor was quickly shot down by one of the stars of the show, Wildcat. So later on in the episode, they get filled in on the mission, and the mission for the bulk of the episode is they have to save a game called Red Head Intervention, which is an obvious parody of the video game Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Redemption 2, and the scene shown on the screen, it actually shows the setting for the final battle at the end of the episode. This is probably an instance of artists using art over again in the episode, considering this is just the pilot. It's probably a very small budget, meaning they couldn't do that many different drawings of the games, and the case for the video game is shown off, and at the top you can see, instead of saying Xbox, it actually says Xbone, a way to keep copyright infringement out of the episode. And then down at the corner you can see a parody Rockstar logo, but instead of an R, it's a C, meaning this company's name probably isn't Rockstar, it's probably Cockstar, which is a very interesting name to go with, but considering the amount that they try to pressure people into buying shark cards in GTA 5, it's probably a good thing that their name is Cockstar, because they are usually effing their players pretty hard. Now, Allison mentions that gamers are probably going to end up logging off of the game and going to suck their own dicks on TikTok, which prompts Daryl to then write down in his notebook, download TikTok, which we can later see him doing when he logs on and watches a girl dancing in a bikini, like I'm sure most guys do on TikTok. Now, this next bit launches into one of my favorite parts of the pilot episode. They talk about how this game powers the power grid for Area 51, which leads to a scene where we cut to an alien named Lisa who's looking at a photo of her family, and the power grid cuts out and we see her cellmate Ed, which you can read on his name tag, jumps off of the bench and runs out of the cell with his arms behind his back, depicting the Naruto run, popular recently for the whole Storm Area 51 event that took place back in 2019. But before Lisa can escape, she is stopped and tased by a guard. Now, Daryl asks if they have programmers that can do this instead, and Allison says that they have the best in the world, clicking a button, revealing them all trapped inside this room. Now, you can see the obvious tally marks on the side of the desk, but you can also see the ceiling was busted in the top left, and the vent off in the top right has been bent a bit, indicating that these people have been trying to escape from this room in many different ways. This scene actually reminded me a lot of one of the scenes from the Rick and Morty episode, The Whirly-Durly Conspiracy, where there's a small support group of aliens that are trapped inside Rick's machine until Beth releases them accidentally. Allison explains that putting them in the code lets them do things that other players can't, and on the screen we get some cool little moments featuring Eddie. One moment shows him killing a dog in a game that is very similar to the video game Hearthstone, but this version is cats fighting dogs. Later on, Ruby mentions to the team how they make sex dolls of their co-workers, specifically of their co-worker Evan. This was actually first shown in a promo clip for the show where the team was putting terrible stuff inside of each other's bags while entering the building. However, Steven actually seems to like it, meaning Steven is probably either a gay character or a bisexual character in the show who has an attraction to Wildcat's character Tommy. Which probably means that Steven is spending a lot of his time on blackpigdick.com. Comment below if you get that reference. If not, I'm sorry. And all the team is loaded into the game with all their designs reflected from their regular outfits. Eddie has his shirt underneath his cowboy shirt, Buck has the diamond design around his hat, Mason has a striped poncho, much like his jacket, and Tommy wears a yellow shirt with a red bandana for his red scratch marks and his yellow hoodie. Now they show off a player. This player is also voiced by Brian/Terrorizer, and the player shoots a barrel, making oil spill out onto the ground. This is some nice foreshadowing for what happens towards the end of the big battle at the end of the episode. And they enter this bar that has a painting of a nude black woman above the door. You can also see a spittoon by the bar, and on the floor we see this banana peel. This could be a reference, it could be a small reference to the whole Banana Bus crew that Vanoss Gaming and all of them are known to be playing in, but this could just be a random design detail that some people like myself are probably just reading way too much into. But if it is a small little reference to the Banana Bus crew, nice, making it very, very subtle. Seeing the disgusting floor, the gang starts a new game of The Floor is Lava, but Eddie immediately says, "I'll play it when it counts," once again setting up the ending for the battle later on. And he talks to the bar waitress, who you can tell by her figure is actually the cover star of the game, and she tells them that a man by the name of 𝗕𝗏𝗏 has taken over the townspeople. We find out later on that this woman is played by one of the members of Bravo Team, as are the henchmen and 𝗕𝗏𝗏 himself, which is why they're able to tell that Alpha Team were coming. They communicated it to each other. Now, instead of taking the horses, the gang hops on a train, and it's very interesting. While Tommy was checking out the design of the seat of the train, I actually noticed that the design of the seats of the train is actually a cowboy hat with a nice little mustache. I thought that was a really cool thing to talk about. And while talking about the golden age of humanity, a racist man points out to Mason, "This ain't the black car," causing Mason to shoot him, and it's actually very funny because this racist was actually voiced by Marcel himself. Now, 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 sends some goons after them, and they toss the train conductor onto a cactus, foreshadowing Mason's death later on. And Buck actually carries a giant box of dynamite, which at first glance I didn't really know why he was doing that, but if you remember from earlier in the episode, they explain that he is actually demolitions expert and in charge of explosions, which is why he's carrying around this giant box of dynamite, holding them up with his tiny legs. Tommy breaks into the front of the train holding a shovel and shouts, "Can you dig it?" A reference of the movie The Warriors. And Tommy cuts his head off with a shovel, however it falls into the fire and makes the train go faster. There was actually a deleted scene on Twitter where it shows Tommy using the man's cut off arm to try and get the head out of the fire. This was actually cut for some reason from YouTube's final cut of the episode, but they actually put the deleted scene up on their Twitter page. I'll make sure to try and link it somewhere in the description or in the pinned comment for you guys. So they jump off the train, arriving at the fort, and Mason dies by falling onto a cactus, making him leave the simulation and getting mad at Tommy, thus kicking him straight in the nuts, and this causes him to feel pain in the game. So it's nice that the show is actually setting us up with rules that if something happens to one of the people outside of the game, they feel the pain inside the game, and if they get hurt inside the game, whatever pain they will feel until they are taken out of the game. So in that moment, Mason felt himself dying on that cactus until he was pulled out of the game. Imagine that. Imagine playing like GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2 and feeling whatever's happening inside the game in real life until you leave. That would be horrible, especially if it's one of those moments where you jump out of an airplane in GTA 5 and you don't realize that you don't have a parachute anymore. That would be pretty freaking scary. And after he dies, Mason joins Allison, Ruby, Daryl, and Steven up top and asks for a cheese puff from a bag that is an obvious ripoff of a Cheetos bag. He also points at a big red and yellow triangle button and asks what it does. We never do find out what it actually does, so hopefully when the show is greenlit, we get some expansion on this button, perhaps as a season finale episode on what the button does. Now the team knocks on the front door, one of the henchmen opens it, and we get a look at some of the captives inside, such as two black men that are tied up, and one of them is actually holding a rope in their mouth, which is holding an anvil over some kids, and 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗪 is sitting in a chair watching them. Pretty dark stuff. And we cut back to Area 51, where Lisa is now reading an alien porno magazine, but secretly inside are plans for her escape. However, with the incoming power outage, she may not even need those plans. We cut back to Redhead intervention, and Eddie brings the gang to 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗀, and we see a man holding a baby tied to a barrel of dynamite as a woman drops cigarette ashes onto it. Once again, another instance of 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗀's gang going a little bit too far with the whole captive thing. And obviously, 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗀/ Edgelord quickly sees through their trick and shoots at them, and he shoots Buck directly in the leg, taking him out for the entirety of this final battle. And Eddie calls out to Tommy to do something, and Tommy goes for his triumphant moment where he whistles for the horse, jumps towards it, and completely misses it, falls on his face. This was the joke that actually got me to laugh the hardest throughout this episode, and it ends with the horse actually stomping on his head, and you can even see some of the enemies in the background are grossed out by this. This takes Tommy out of the game, and he joins the crew back at HQ to eat some cheese puffs as well. Now, even though Eddie is able to knock the gun out of 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗀's hand, he instead uses his knife to the red-headed whore from earlier, and Eddie refuses to shoot her, keeping with his whole ally characteristic throughout the episode and trying to impress Ruby by doing it. And 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗀 knocks the barrel over, spilling the oil onto the floor and catching the floor on fire, blocking Eddie's path. Then we cut back to Area 51, and the power goes out again. Ed, once again, Naruto runs off, and Lisa finally gets out of the cell and finally gets a few more feet outside of the cell before what ends up happening actually happens. Next is actually a really crazy continuity error that I found. We cut back to the Energy Division HQ, and Mason is holding the bag of cheese puffs. But then, as Daryl says that he's leaving the room, the bag changes for a split second to a jar of cheese puffs rather than the bag of cheese puffs, and then they quickly revert back into the bag. I don't know what caused this error to slip through the cracks in the animation, but it was a very interesting thing to catch. Now, back in the game, Eddie sees the men up top and thinks of his plan. He runs towards the fire and shoots the men down from the balcony, thus providing a perfect path across the fire where he doesn't touch the floor. The payoff to the big joke from the entire episode. And as he jumps across the flames, we see once again that continuity error where Mason is now eating out of a jar of cheese puffs instead of the bag. Eddie then kicks the hooker out of the way and shows 𝗕𝗏𝗪𝗀 why you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, shooting him and killing him, thus saving the grid and saving the power division for Area 51. And we cut back to Area 51 for perhaps the saddest moment of this entire episode for me, where we see Lisa finally getting out of the main building of Area 51. She's crying, she's happy, she's running, hoping to get back home to her family, and then she gets tackled by a guard, and then the guard farts, and then the guard tases her. What a dick. If we end up getting more episodes of this show, I really hope there's a moment where, one, Lisa gets out of Area 51, and two, I hope there's a moment where Lisa gets revenge on whatever the hell this guard's name is. I don't know, whatever you want to call him. Derek, who knows? Fuck you, Derek. So we cut to a different room, and Daryl is writing out his letter to the president with fake headlines flying by, like one from the Wall Street Journal that says, "Auditor single-handedly balances U.S. budget," and then there's another one from the New York Times that says, "Wife takes back auditor after breakthrough report." On this one, you can see a quote at the top left that says, "Hope you like news," and at the top of the name is Ronan Farrow, which is the name of an American journalist, and then there's one by the Washington Post that says, "Daughter calls auditor dad," instead of Daryl, probably thinking that either his daughter hates him so much that she calls him Daryl, or it could be a stepdaughter that hasn't totally embraced him as her new father. Allison then takes Daryl to a new part of the facility down a hallway labeled 8X, which houses the Bravo unit. And their setup, if you look at it, is actually much more advanced than Alpha Team's, meaning that even with this more sophisticated technology, Bravo Team was still not able to take down Alpha Team, even though considering Alpha Team obviously has the lesser equipment than Bravo Team. And before this new set of character introductions can begin, Edgelord shoots and kills Daryl, and it is revealed that Allison has been using Bravo Team to try and screw up Alpha Team so she can finally fire them, and the seeds were planted throughout the entire episode, so if the series is greenlit, we can definitely see Bravo Team come back as the big bad throughout the series, probably setting up the sort of rivalry you would see between two different E-teams, who fight over video games like Fortnite and Call of Duty and stuff like that, but instead it's who's gonna save the world's energy division. And the final reveal comes when Steven is called to clean up Daryl's dead body, and he turns into a freaking robot vacuum cleaner to clean up the body. Awesome reveal, didn't see it coming. I hope we get to see more of Steven in his robot form if the series is greenlit. And this takes us out of the episode, but there's still some really cool Easter eggs inside of the credits where we see Eddie and Buck wearing VR headsets, we see Tommy doing a Hadouken pose, and then we see Mason in some sort of looter shooter gear. However, he does get to keep the purple and yellow color scheme on his arms and knee pads. And that is the end of the Alpha Beta's pilot episode. A lot of really cool details included. I'm very happy that we got to check out this pilot episode. I really hope it gets greenlit. A lot of really cool stuff. I'll probably watch it over and over again. I'll probably show it to a ton of different people, and if you haven't already, please do it. And if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments section below. Were there any details that I missed out on? And if you would like to support this channel, make sure you leave a thumbs up and subscribe. I do a lot of gaming stuff. I do a lot of pro wrestling stuff, but I like to do a lot of out-of-the-box kind of stuff here and there, much like this. I've never done a breakdown before, so this was pretty fun to do. And if you guys enjoyed, tweet it at Tyler, tweet it at Vanos, tweet it at Brian, tweet it at Marcel. I kind of want to see them watch this and see their reactions to see if there was anything they were surprised by. I want to see their reaction and what they think of the whole conspiracy of the changing bag and jar. I thought that was a really cool thing to catch. But yeah, let me know in the comments section below what you guys thought of this whole breakdown. And I have been Jacob with the WrestleDude YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.